Welcome everybody back to the channel, and today I just wanted to pick up, as you can probably tell from the beginning of the video, with a follow-up on Siege of Mantua from Hollandspiele. It's a game I did a unboxing on several weeks ago and was able to get this out on the table Friday with some of the guys from the club, and they played it. I kind of oversaw it. And yeah, we had a really interesting experience. I just wanted to share some of the things that came out regarding the game, some of the things that we really liked, some of the things, just general observations maybe that some people wouldn't like, and just sort of summarise some of the pros and cons. So let's just start first of all with a summary of the initial kind of experience of setting it up. One, very quick and easy to set up. There's a setup element in the back of the rules, tells you where the blocks are going to be. There are some small choices for the various belligerents to choose at the beginning, which may define the strategy that you take with the game, but overall it's a very quick setup experience. I think it lends itself to a lot of thought, a lot of strategy, but it's also a lot of fun. It's a very asymmetric game, and therefore it won't be for everybody, particularly those Napoleon grognards out there who are looking for infantry, artillery, cavalry, squares, cavalry charges, defensive positions, etc. That's not there. What you've got here is elements that represent all of those things wrapped into one, and a very straightforward battle system. But it still does allow for a lot of skill, a lot of strategy, and it definitely has quite a lot of chrome to it to make you feel that you're managing Napoleonic troops. One of the key sections, I think, in the rules that I referred to quite early on was the bringing it all together, which is right near the end, where it kind of summarises a breakdown really of a turn, bringing it all into headings, and then you can just relate back to the parts within the rules as you need to for clarification. That was really good, and it kind of, working through that, you start to do that quite quickly without referring much to the rules at all. So that's always for me a sign of a very good game. I talked about the setup and the choices. So as the Austrian player, most of your forces are allocated en masse over on one part of the map, but the Tyrolean troops do have a choice of 2 start-up positions, and again that lends itself to some choices for the Austrian player, whether maybe they're going to move troops around in a flanking movement, or whether they're going to try and link up with the main forces to enable greater communication flow, which again is another key element of the game. For the French, very set start-up positions, but there are still 2 key strategies for them to be thinking about. One, within their 10 blocks they have 3 dummy blocks, so how do they deploy those? How are they going to use those to best effect whilst protecting them? It's really important for the French not to lose them, because if one of those is uncovered as part of a combat manoeuvre, they are lost immediately and count towards the victory conditions for the Austrian player. The second thing I think for the French player to think about is the siege itself of Mantua, and the 2 pieces that are allocated to the besieged part of the map. Are they going to try and hold that siege in place throughout the whole game, or are they willing to give that up quite easily and maybe utilise their troops elsewhere? So again, I think a key decision for the French to make very early on. Overall, the overview of the game was really good. Manoeuvres. The whole game is all about manoeuvre, really. Cat and mouse, probing, testing areas, trying to manoeuvre your opponent into the position where you've got best chance of bringing him or her to battle and potentially defeating them. Part of that is set out really well on the map with the use of city squares and points, and using the correlation between those, the points, to block enemy maneuvers, or also using retreats at the given point to bring enemies into positions where you can counter-attack them as well. And this lends itself nicely into another key aspect of the game that links in with manoeuvre, which is communication lines, supply lines, whatever you want to call them. And I think this is a really interesting element, that both players can select one block or group of blocks in a square at the beginning of their turn, and anyone that's in communication with that block or blocks in that square can also take an action that turn. Now for the French, certainly at the beginning of the game, pretty much everything is going to be able to activate. But for the Austrian player, they've got a bit of a dilemma in that two of their forces are split apart. So they're going to have to make a decision very quickly on what to do there. They're going to be a bit slower. Can the French capitalise on that? Or indeed, can the Austrians drive a wedge to break the communication lines of the French? So again, there's some really nice things in there, linked in with a couple of special manoeuvres that can be done as well, allowing you to kind of reallocate troops or reinforce positions. So again, these are all sort of clever dynamics whilst keeping the game very, very simple. The actual narrowing it down when you get off the big map into the battle board or the battle map, the battles themselves are again very asymmetric, and for a lot of people looking for that Napoleonic war game feel, you won't get that. You're dealing with pieces that have morale values on them depending on their level, but there are some really clever mechanics in the way battles take place and how casualties are allocated. And again, I'm not going to share all of that on the video, but again, you can download these rules at Board Game Geek and read that for yourselves. But some really clever mechanics there in terms of how the battles are orchestrated. A couple of key things in the battles themselves are the use of command points, and if you've got your commander there, you'll have more. If you haven't, you'll have less. Again, depending on the size of your force that you've got there, you will need more or less command points accordingly. Again, depending on the type of actions you want to take, you'll need more or less command points. So there's lots of little decisions to make there as a commander in a battle. One area where we did make a mistake when we played through the first time was around the time clock and using of the doubling dice. Subsequently, I've had this answered by Amabel, and rereading was able to answer that with help of one of the chaps in the club as well. But it's a really clever dynamic. So you have a differing turn clock on how many turns that battle is going to last on each one, so they're not always the same. If a force has not retreated when the time runs out, then you start to get into this position of forcing a commander to either retreat or accept a doubling of the odds, which can in effect cause multiples of more casualties to your overall blocks if you lose the battle subsequently. So there's some really, again, really clever mechanics being written into the whole battle system. And within that, again, are the pieces, the units that you're using within a battle. Their morale or their quality, experience, their state is manipulated positively or negatively depending on how well you fare in that battle afterwards. And what that means is that your supply pool of units from battle to battle could get richer or weaker depending on how things are going. And of course, after a series of defeats, you're going to find yourself more and more up against it in the grand tactical scale of the game itself. Really clever. What all of these things do, I think, is drive a result from the game. They drive a result from the individual battles, and in turn then they drive a result with the loss of the blocks. So I think overall it's a very, very clever game with some really interesting mechanics. Just to summarise, the component quality, as I said in the unboxing, is top notch. The map is beautiful. The battle map is really good. The blocks are stunning. I have noted that there is some fading on some of the print on the blocks already. I'm hoping that won't get too bad. But overall, really pleased with the blocks. You know, they're great, and I like the way they work. It's nice to have something big and easy to see, to manoeuvre. I think the best judge of how to rate this game is on what the two players who played the game said at the end, and both unanimously said they would love to play it again and that they really enjoyed. It was a really thoughtful game for them. They got a really good experience, and these are both people who play Napoleonic war games. So I think in summary, you know, Siege of Mantua is a really clever game. Hollandspiele delivered a great product here, and I'm hoping Amabel Holland will be able to bring out some more games in this series using the same rules approach, because I think it's really clever, really different. But yeah, that's Siege of Mantua. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and see you again next time.